The ticking of the clock in Dr. Mason's office seemed unusually loud that Tuesday afternoon. I sat there, my hands trembling as I clutched the journal she'd given me 3 sessions ago. Inside were the dark secrets I've been carrying for 16 years. "Take your time, Sophia," Dr. Mason said softly, her kind eyes watching me with patience I didn't deserve. At least, that's what my parents always said. I didn't deserve kindness. I opened the journal to the dog-eared page and began reading in a whisper. October 15th. Dad threw away my medication again. Said I was faking my ADHD for attention. Mom washed and laughed. Couldn't focus in class. Failed my history test. They locked me in the basement for 4 hours as punishment. Dr. Mason's pen stopped moving. I could feel her tension, but I continued. October 18th. Found out Mom's been cashing my grandmother's checks, meant for my college fund. When I confronted her, she slapped me and said I was ungrateful. Dad threatened to send me to military school if I told anyone. My voice cracked, but I forced myself to continue. This was my 3rd session with Dr. Mason, and the first time I'd found the courage to share my journal. The school counselor had arranged these therapy sessions after noticing my declining grades and concerning behavior. My parents had only agreed because it looked good to their country club friends. Having a daughter in therapy meant they were progressive parents. October 20th. They're getting worse. Mom sold my laptop, the one I saved up for my tutoring jobs. Said I didn't deserve nice things. When I cried, Dad made me kneel on rice in the corner while they ate dinner. They invited their friends over, told them I was being punished for stealing. Everyone laughed. Dr. Mason set her notepad down. "Sophia, how long has this been going on?" I stared at my worn sneakers, the only pair of shoes I owned. As long as I can remember, but it got worse after Grandma died last year. She was the only one who protected me, who loved me, who saw me. "Have you told anyone else?" I laughed bitterly. They made sure I knew better. "Who'll believe a worthless kid like you?" That's their favorite line, and they're right. They're respected doctors in the community. Mom runs charity events. Dad's on the hospital board. I'm just their screw-up daughter who can't even get straight A's. "You're not a screw-up, Sophia," Dr. Mason said firmly, "and I believe you." Those 3 words hit me like a physical force. I believe you. When was the last time anyone had said that to me? Yesterday, I continued, my voice stronger now. I found out they've been forging my signature on documents. They're selling the house Grandma left me in her will. They said if I told anyone, they'd tell everyone about my mental problems and have me committed. Dr. Mason's face remained professional, but I saw something flash in her eyes. "Sophia, what you've described isn't just abuse. It's criminal behavior. Financial fraud, medical neglect, physical and emotional abuse." "Please," I interrupted, panic rising. "You can't tell anyone. They'll know it was me." They'll what?" she asked gently. "What are you afraid they'll do?" I hugged myself, remembering last week's lesson in gratitude that left bruises hidden under my long sleeves. They always know when I've talked. Always, and then A knock at the office door made me jump. Dr. Mason's assistant poked her head in. "They're here." My heart stopped. "Who's here?" Dr. Mason leaned forward. "Sophia, I need you to listen carefully. After our first session, when you mentioned your parents withholding your medication, I had a legal obligation to report it. What you've shared today only confirms my initial concerns. Child Protective Services is here, along with the police." The room started spinning. No. You don't understand. They'll say I'm lying. They always do. Nobody ever believes. "I believe you," Dr. Mason repeated firmly. "And this time, we have evidence. Your journal. Your medical records showing inconsistent medication access. The financial documents you mentioned. The bruises I know you're hiding under those sleeves." I clutched my arms protectively. "How did you?" "I've been doing this for 15 years, Sophia. I know the signs. And I've spent the last 2 weeks building a case to protect you. Your parents won't be able to hurt you anymore." As if on cue, I heard familiar voices in the waiting room. My parents, their fake sweet social voices carrying through the door. "We're here to pick up our daughter. Dr. Mason should be expecting us." But for the first time in my life, their voices didn't paralyze me with fear. Because this time, I wasn't alone. This time, someone had believed me before I'd even found the courage to tell the whole truth. Dr. Mason stood up, her posture protective. "Are you ready?" I looked at my journal, thinking of Grandma, thinking of all the nights I cried silently in my room, thinking of the little girl I used to be who deserved so much better. Yes, I whispered, standing up. I'm ready. Little did my parents know, their reign of terror was about to end. And this time, someone had already believed me. The next hour unfolded like a scene from someone else's life. I watched through Dr. Mason's office window as two police officers approached my parents in the waiting room. Mom's perfectly composed face crumpled when they started reading her rights. Dad's confident smile vanished when the CPS worker presented him with documentation of their years of abuse. This is ridiculous. Mom's voice reached through the walls. We're respected members of this community. Do you know who we are? Yes, Mrs. Anderson, the female officer replied coldly. We know exactly who you are, and who you've been pretending to be. A social worker named Ms. Torres sat with me in Dr. Mason's office, explaining what would happen next. We have enough evidence for emergency removal, she said gently. You won't have to go home with them today, or ever again, if that's what you want. But where will I go? The question came out small, frightened. Your grandmother's sister, your great-aunt Elizabeth, has already agreed to take temporary custody. She's been trying to contact you for months. My heart jumped. Aunt Liz? Mom had always said she was dead, just like she'd said about all of Grandma's family. She's alive? I whispered. Miss Torres nodded, her eyes sad. Your parents have been intercepting her letters and calls. She became concerned when she couldn't reach you after your grandmother's death, especially regarding the house that was left to you. The house. My sanctuary during the brief visits Grandma had allowed before she got sick. The one place I'd felt safe. They were trying to sell it, I said. They tried, Miss Torres corrected. But they couldn't. Your grandmother's will was very specific. The house belongs to you, in a trust it can't touch. Aunt Elizabeth is the trustee. A commotion outside drew our attention. Dad was arguing loudly with the officers. She's manipulating you, he shouted. She's always been a problem child. Ask anyone. Dr. Mason stepped into the hallway. I did ask Dr. Anderson. I asked her teachers, who noticed the signs of neglect. I asked her previous doctors, who reported suspicious gaps in her medication schedule. I even asked your colleagues at the hospital, who witnessed your disciplinary discussions with your daughter in the parking lot. Mom's fake sobs echoed through the building. We only wanted what's best for her. Everything we did was for her own good. Making her kneel on rice was for her good. Dr. Mason's voice was steel. Selling her possessions, stealing her inheritance, forging her signature. You have no proof, Dad snarled. Actually, said a new voice, Detective Warner, according to his badge, we have quite a lot of proof, including video footage from your neighbor's security camera showing you locking your daughter out of the house last week, in the rain, at midnight. I heard Mom's sharp intake of breath. They hadn't known about the cameras. Miss Torres touched my arm gently. Sophia, we can leave through the back door. You don't have to see them. But something had shifted inside me. Hearing them try to lie, to manipulate, to control the narrative, it sparked something new. Not fear, but anger. No, I said, standing up. I want them to see me leave. Dr. Mason smiled proudly. Are you sure? I nodded, clutching my journal, my evidence, my truth, to my chest. Walking into that waiting room was the hardest thing I'd ever done. Mom's mascara was streaked with fake tears. Dad's face was red with rage. They both froze when they saw me. Sophia, Mom said sweetly, darling, tell them this is all a misunderstanding. Tell them how much we love you. I looked at her perfectly manicured hands, hands that had slapped me countless times. At Dad's expensive watch, bought with money stolen from my college fund. I already told them the truth, I said, my voice steady, and this time, someone believed me. You ungrateful little. Dad started forward, but the officers blocked him. Goodbye, I said simply, turning away from their shocked faces. Miss Torres led me out to her car, explaining that Aunt Liz was already on her way from Oregon. We'd stay in a safe house until she arrived. As we drove away, I saw my parents being led to separate police cars in my rearview mirror. Mom was still crying dramatically. Dad was demanding his phone call. Are you okay? Miss Torres asked softly. I watched my childhood prison disappear around the corner. The weight of 16 years of abuse seemed to lift slightly from my shoulders. No, I answered honestly, but I think I will be. She smiled. Your Aunt Elizabeth. She sounds a lot like your grandmother. She's been fighting to find you for months. She never stopped believing something was wrong. I opened my journal, looking at the pages of pain that had become my key to freedom. I never thought anyone would believe me over them. That's what abusers do, Ms. Torres said. They isolate you, make you doubt yourself, but they're not in control anymore. You are. As we drove toward my new future, I felt something unfamiliar bloom in my chest. It took me a moment to recognize it. Hope. 1 year later, I stood in Grandma's garden, my garden now, watching the sunset paint the Oregon sky in shades of pink and gold. The roses she planted were blooming, their scent mixing with the salty ocean breeze that drifted up from the coast. The trial had ended 3 months ago. My journal, combined with the mountain of evidence Dr. Mason and the investigators had gathered, left no room for my parents' carefully constructed lies. They'd been sentenced to 8 years each, not just for the abuse, but for the financial fraud and medical negligence. Tea's ready, sweetheart. Aunt Liz called from the porch. She was so different from Mom. Soft where Mom was sharp, warm where Mom was cold. She wore comfortable gardening clothes instead of designer suits, and her laugh was real, not practiced for an audience. I joined her on the porch swing, accepting a mug of chamomile tea. My therapist, a new one, chosen by me this time, said small comforts were important for healing. A year ago, I wouldn't have believed I deserved even this simple pleasure. Letter came from the foundation today, Aunt Liz said, trying to sound casual. We both knew what that meant. The Foundation for Youth Advocacy had reached out 6 months ago, asking me to share my story. At first, I'd refused, still struggling with shame and fear. But then I received a letter from another teenager who'd been saved because a teacher recognized the signs of abuse I described in my testimony. I'll do it, I said, surprising myself. I'll speak at their conference. Aunt Liz squeezed my hand. Your grandmother would be so proud of you. I got another letter from Mom yesterday, I added quietly. And? I didn't open it. Dr. Patterson says I don't have to read them if I'm not ready. I took a sip of tea. Maybe I'll never be ready, and that's okay. Yes, it is, Aunt Liz agreed. You get to set the boundaries now. My phone buzzed. A text from Dr. Mason, who still checked in regularly. Thinking of you. Conference materials arrived. When you're ready to tell your story, I'll be there to support you. Proud of how far you've come. I smiled, remembering that terrified girl in her office a year ago. I barely recognized her now. The changes weren't just internal. I'd grown stronger, healthier. My ADHD was properly managed with regular medication. My grades had improved enough to earn a scholarship to the state university, where I planned to study psychology next fall. Ms. Torres called, Aunt Liz said. The support group you suggested? They're starting it next month. They want you to help design the program. The support group had been my idea, a safe space for teenagers with respectable parents like mine, whose abuse was hidden behind social status and community standing, a place where they would be believed. Did I tell you Jennifer finally left her parents' house? I said, referring to a girl I'd met through the preliminary support group meetings. She showed her teacher the bruises, said if I could speak up, so could she. Aunt Liz wiped away a tear. You're changing lives, Sophia. They saved mine first, I replied, thinking of Dr. Mason, Ms. Torres, and all the others who had believed me when it mattered most. The sun had almost set now, turning the garden into a soft twilight sanctuary. In the distance, I could hear the ocean, constant, powerful, free, like I was becoming. My phone buzzed again. This time it was a text from Jennifer. Did it. Finally told the whole truth. Police believed me. I'm safe now. Thank you for showing me it was possible. I showed the message to Aunt Liz, who pulled me into a gentle hug, the kind that asked for nothing in return. You know what your grandmother used to say, she murmured. Truth is like those roses out there. Sometimes it has thorns, sometimes it seems too delicate to survive, but given the right care and courage to bloom, it becomes something beautiful. I looked out at the garden, at the house that had become my true home, at the life I was building from the ashes of the one my parents had tried to destroy. Next week, I said, when I speak at the conference, I'm going to tell them that the most powerful words in the world are I believe you, because sometimes that's all someone needs to hear to find their strength. Aunt Liz smiled, handed me a cookie, the kind I'd never been allowed before, and together we watched the stars appear in the darkening sky. Each one seemed to whisper what I now knew to be true. I was believed, I was safe, I was free. And somewhere another child was gathering the courage to speak their truth. When they did, I would be there to say those magic words. I believe you.